so I can have the control for this. So I stop it, I start again. I'm going to stop transcription. That's it. Okay, so it's 6th of May. So it means that we still have like a 2 months and a half until like the final exam date. Of course, like the last course is going to be before the final exam date, but you're going to have time to build your final project. Okay, so the final project is going to be the full stack. That will include also the deployment and everything. Okay, so some of you talked with me about like pipelines of CI/CD. So we're going to try also to create our pipelines when we deploy the project. Okay, so we can create the Docker file, we can deploy using Docker, we can create the pipeline for CI/CD and whatever. Okay, so other group also asked me a little bit about caching. Okay, so we can use like one caching feature, Redis, for example, in the back end. Okay, so we're gonna try again. I'm gonna try to push as much as possible inside the subjects. It's more for you, okay? Because now the market's a little bit crazy, so we have like one new technology every day, so it's kind of like insane. But like, well, you know, the goal here is to have like a good experience and to learn new stuff. That's it. So this is like what I would like to say to you. So now we can start to go with our class. Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen right now. So what's new? It's that like I first of all I changed the API. So now we should be able to receive the message in English, the error message and so on. So last class we were able to connect with login. So we didn't create the sign up. The sign up was exactly for you to do like as exercise. Okay, so we had here the material list. That's going to be exactly where we're going to place all the materials that we're going to have. So this is going to be the second step, because now we're going to start to use header in our API requests. So I create the documentation of the API. I'm going to send this to you today at the end of the class. So it means that you can start to try to do the requests in your side. If you are comfortable to advance yourself in the class, so to finish, if you feel comfortable to call like all the requests that are missing, so you're going to be able, because you have everything here. So all the endpoints, they are well described in the API documentation. Okay, as I told you before, the first step when you have like one API to integrate, that's going to be exactly your work for the midterm project. Okay, is to check the documentation and know how the API works. Last class we start to use our API, but I didn't have the documentation yet, so we could not know how we could do each request. So I was giving to you the instructions to do it. So we did like the sign up by Postman. We did the login in the app. So basically, what the documentation is going to say is going to mention to you exactly the endpoint and what's going to be required, in the request. So if we remember, if I go back here to my Postman, I'm going to go to my workspace here. So this is 2930. So we created here the two requests, one for the login, one for the sign up. So this is exactly what's mentioned here in the documentation. For example, if you want to call the sign up feature, you need to use this API URL, base URL. You need to go to the route sign up. You need to go to the route authentication sign up, auth sign up, and the required fields are name, email, password, and program. Program in this case is optional. It's going to say that if we pass this inside the body, it's going to work. If we don't pass, it will not work. It will work at the same way, but it's going to be null, okay, for the inside database. And that's it. Here is what we expect when we have a success response. So we're going to have the access token, and we're going to have also the user object. And the possible errors, that's going to be 400, bad request, 509, conflict. Okay, so bad request, it's when you try to make the call without the required fields. 409, we saw that it's going to when we have conflict, and 500 is internal error. Probably it's going to happen, okay, when we have like a database problem or whatever. So, for example, last week we created Ronaldo inside our database. So if I try to create Ronaldo one more time, what's going to happen? I'm going to have here conflict. There you go, conflict. And now, as I told you, we have here the message in English, okay? So to start to work in our app, of course, the next step for us is going to be exactly to create the sign up behavior. So, oops. Let's go back to our terminal. So remember, insert this on. Okay, that's good. So we're going to go to our terminal. We're going to access our Angular app first, cd Angular app. So now let's run here, okay, the command to create a new component called sign up. We didn't create, right? No, we didn't. So let's create our component called sign up because we need to start to implement our sign up feature right now. So it was your exercise, but we're going to solve here together. If we check, okay, here, the authentication service, we're going to see that the sign up is going to be basically the same as we did here for the login. Because first, the type of the response from the sign up is going to be exactly the same. So if we check the API doc here, when we call sign up, we should receive as a response the access token and the user. Okay, here, success response, access token, and user object. If we check what's going to happen in the sign up, we're going to also receive access token and user object. And we saw last week also in the Postman that when we call this, the return of the API is exactly something like this. Okay, so it's exactly the same. So it means that the model for this is already there because we created the interface, okay, that will allow us to match with like the response that's coming from the API. What's going to be the difference right now? The difference is when I pass here the body, that's one JSON object, I need to pass email, password, name, and program. Okay? So we need to create another function that can be exactly the same as this one, but I'm going to call this sign up, where I need to receive right now as a parameter, not only email and password, but also name, email, password, and program. Even program is optional, okay? I'm gonna keep this as like required, okay? So when we call the function, we need to pass the program, okay? Or we pass the program as one empty string, or we pass here, okay, something. So, so this is the sign up. So now the second step is when I call, I need to check if the HTTP verb that we're going to use is exactly the one that's mentioned in the documentation. So it is a post. It is a post method. So it's good. we are still using post. As I said before, the response is going to be exactly the same as the login. So we keep authentication response exactly in the same way. But now the endpoint will be different because to call the login, I'm going to call slash login, authentication login. To call the sign up, I'm going to call slash alt slash sign up. So we're going to change this. We are fine. That's it. So now we have another method inside my authentication service that will allow us to call the sign up. Okay. Next step right now is going to be call this inside our sign up component. Okay. So let's run the app ng-serve. So we created here the sign up component. So remember, every time that we create a new component, if we want to include this component inside the route of the app, we need to go to our app routes, and we need to add here a new endpoint, sign up for the component that we just created. So now when I try to access sign up, I'm going to redirect the user to the sign up component. Okay. So the sign up is going to be basically exactly the same as we had here for the login. Okay. The only difference is that the sign up for us will have name and program. So exactly the same HTML that we created here for the login, we can copy and we're going to paste inside of the sign up component. And now we're going to start to adapt. Okay. We have one label for the email with one input inside. So we're going to copy this. We're going to paste. Okay. And we're going to have now another label with input with name. Okay. So we're going to associate this input with one variable that's called name. We can give a name for this input, exactly the same name as the variable name, whatever. In the type, we can put this as a text. We still have email to create the account. We still have the password to create the account. But here at the end, we're going to have also program to create the account. Okay. The same, we're going to have, we're going to need to associate this with one specific variable. So we can call this program. The name, we can do the same program. And the type, we can do text. And that's it. This is not login. This is a sign up. Okay. And here, instead of login, I'm gonna put create. That's it. Now we have here some variables that we declared inside of the HTML. Okay. So if we are using here inside ng model, automatically we need to create the variables inside the TypeScript file, because this is exactly the file that will make the reference, the binding. Okay. So going to the TypeScript file, at the beginning, we're going to create here the variable called name, the variable called email, the variable called password, and also the variable called program. Right? So exactly the same as we did before for the login. The second step right now, we need to inject, in fact, we need to import here the forms module to avoid those errors, and also common module, because let's wait this to load, because it's a common module. That's it. Okay, so no errors anymore. Well, we still have the error for the error message because we didn't declare. We are still using here error message because it's the message that will come from the API. So we're gonna also use here error message as, okay, a variable. So now the only thing that we're missing is the submit function, because this is the function that when we click, okay, we call the, sorry, I opened the, there. Okay, so for now, I'm gonna just like create a comment inside, that's it. So now everything is gonna be fine, no errors anymore. So if we check our project and we go to sign up, okay, so we have here the form, everything is good. Now, next step. Now we know that when the user fills all the fields and we press the button submit, we're going to call this function and we're going to take all those values to call the API, right? In fact, to call the API, we need to call the service because the declaration here is exactly, okay, where the declaration sign up is exactly here where we need to call. So we know that when I need to use a service inside a component, I need to call the constructor of this component, this class, and I need to inject the authentication service, okay, out service here as a parameter in the constructor. So now I can use the authentication service. One thing that we missed inside the authentication service, check. When I called here the sign up, I'm only passing in the body email and password. So we can't do this because we need to pass for the sign up name, email, password, and program. So let's add here the two other keys that we're missing. So name, email, password, program. So now it's fine. Okay. So going back to our sign up component, everything now is ready. So see that every time is the same process, okay? So if we need to call an API that we need information from the user, we're gonna create the form inside the HTML. We're gonna ask the information for the user. When the user dispatch the action, we call the service, we pass the information through the HTTP request, and we wait the response. So now we need to access. In fact, we are calling this out service every time. So we're going to call this authentication service. Now we have here sign up. Okay, that's the new method that we created inside. The sign up, we request name, email, password, and program. So we're going to pass all the information. This name, this email, this password, this program. Again, this will call the method. The method will return one object observable. So we need to subscribe. So if I subscribe, I need to pass here in the subscription one object where I can pass two keys. The next key, that's going to be the callback when this goes well. And also the error key, that's going to be the callback function where, okay, it fails. And that's it. So every time the same process. If I need the response of this to do something, I will declare here, I will add here the parameter in my callback function. So I can do a console log here, res, right? If I need the error to show something in the application, I'm going to add here the parameter, okay, error, exactly the same steps as we did before. There's no secrets, okay? So every time is going to be the same. Once the structure of like the sign up component is kind of like the same structure of like the login component, okay, we can take exactly, this is disgusting. We can take exactly, okay, the same CSS that we created here, and we can paste inside of the sign up component. Okay, we're going to change just like here, for example, the color. We can do this orange, like something like this. There you go. So it's a gradient. So a little bit darker. There you go. Okay. It should be fine. If I go here, there you go. Okay. So I have here the sign up, the create button also, like instead of like green, we can do something like this. There you go. Okay. So all the same. What is good? I don't like this font. Wait. So in the global style here, let's just change the general behavior for the box sizing. Let's put border box. Okay. Let's also change the style of the body to create a margin 0. And let's change the font family to use system UI. There you go. So it's gonna give me there you go, a better font style, because this font style by default is a little bit weird. Okay, it messed up a little bit this because of the box sizing. It messed up a little bit the size of like the width. So let's fix this. I think I put 95. So let's fix this for this and also for the login. There you go. Okay. So all good. So we have here login, sign up. There you go. All fine. Sign up. Okay. So the sign up page right now, we should be able to fill the form, call the API, and here, if everything goes well, we're gonna have like the console log saying the response. If it goes bad, okay, we're gonna have also the response that's coming from the API. For example, I know that Neymar is one of the emails that exists inside of, oops, of the application, okay? So as you can see here, we got as a response email already registered. Okay, so if I try to create an account now with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when I create, oh, this hover is a little bit. So we change the color here, but the hover is still like a green. That's a little bit weird. There. All right. So we got here the response, okay, to say, hey, email exists. If I create right now, I'm gonna say, for example, error, password must be at least 8 characters, okay? So all the responses that are coming from the API, we are able to show here in the console. What's the goal right now? Is to show this inside of one error that's gonna pop right here. So when I have like here the error, this is the callback that will be called, right? As we did like for the GitHub API, all the APIs that we called before, we saw that when we have an error, this is going to be the callback that will be called. So now, if we check the object that will come back from the API, is one error object. The error object has one key called error and another key inside this object called error. Check that this is one object. Check, is a JSON. Is one JavaScript object. Key value. So this is also key, and the value is the object. So we can place this message here. Error message is going to be equal to error, ERR is my object. This is my entire object. What I need to access? This error here. So dot error. After this, what I need to access? Another key called error. So dot error one more time. So now if I try to create here Neymar one more time, create email already registered. Okay, so all good. Now our API is working fine because I changed the text to be in English. So all good. Okay, what's going to happen, for example, if everything goes well? Usually, in this case, we could save the token right away and connect the user inside the application. Okay, but to be a little bit safer, what we're going to do, instead of like doing that, we're going to redirect the user to the login page. Okay, how can we automate the redirect process when we are inside a component in Angular? If we check the login here, what we did to automate this process was exactly create the injection, inject here the router inside the constructor, and we can just use the function called navigate. And that's it. So we're going to do exactly the same process. So inside the sign up here, we can, in the constructor, we inject the authentication service, and we're going to inject also, okay, read only, the router, quick fix, import. And that's it. So when the sign up is successful, we're going to call router, navigate, and here we're going to navigate to login. Okay, so this is exactly what's going to happen when we have here the success account creation. So for example, if now I try to create the account name, of course, we should give like a feedback for the user to say that the account was created, okay? But I'm going to show you how to install the library for the toast. So you're going to show here one toast to mention, okay, that the login is successfully done, the sign up. But this is going to be after when we finish like the app, okay? So this is just like small details that we're going to add inside the application. So if I create the account right now, the password is fine, is 128. So this email doesn't exist inside my database. So now if I press create, it should work well. So as you can see here, it worked. Okay, I got here the access token and the user, and I redirect the user exactly to the login page. So it's good. Okay, so everything's fine. Just to finish this login and sign up page, usually what's going to happen inside the regular apps is we're going to give the option to the user to navigate between pages. This is something that we didn't do before, okay? Because we didn't need. So now we used before links to access another route, but not internal routes of the app. Okay, so we're going to create here after the button in the login page one small text that will allow the user to redirect from this page to the sign up page. So we can create here, for example, a paragraph. Say, do not have an account. And we can use here one link tag, sign up. Okay, so in the login page, you're going to have something like this. Do not have an account, sign up. The sign up should be a link, but should be one internal link. Why I'm talking about this? It's because when we create the material list, the next step is going to be created the navigation bar. We're going to have like the navigation bar inside our app, okay? So, and we need to know at least how the router link works to be able to create a navigation bar, because the navigation bar will bring the user, okay, to one specific route inside our app. So usually we have here the href that will give me the option to type something here, okay, and redirect the user to one specific route. But this is one external route. The goal right now is to be able to redirect the user inside the same app, but without refresh the route, the page, okay? Because when I put href, I could do, for example, href equal localhost port, and here sign up, okay? And when we are in production, we do like the domain that's gonna go to the route. But the problem, this is gonna refresh the page, because this is gonna call another route and it's gonna refresh the app. Sometimes we don't want to refresh because it's a single page app. We just need to change the content of the page, the app component. So how can we use the link inside the HTML to redirect the user to one route inside our app? We can use one property that's called router link. This will allow me to select one route inside of the application. So slash sign up. To use this property inside the link, we need to import here the router link. Okay, exactly as we do for the common module, for example, to be able to use like a ngIf, ng4, and whatever. We're going to use here router link to be able to use the router link inside of the A tag. So now, if I go back here to my application, I have here sign up. Okay, so check. I have here localhost port slash sign up. So if I click on it, I don't refresh, I change. So we know now how to do the navigation automation from the TypeScript file and also from the HTML file. And we're going to do the same here for the sign up. So inside the sign up, we're going to copy the same paragraph. We're going to go here. After the button, we're going to say already have an account, login. And here, we're going to redirect to login. Okay? The same, if we are using router link, we need to import, okay, here inside the imports, the router link. Now, so already have an account, login. Do not have an account, sign up. Okay, so we can navigate. So now we have like one navigation automation in both situations, HTML and also TypeScript. Okay, there's another thing that we're gonna be able to do when we have like the navigation bar. That's gonna be exactly the router link active. Okay, because we're going to be able to select one specific style for the route that's active. So we can mark a little bit different exactly the button, okay, for the current route inside our navigation bar. Navigation bar is going to be the next step, okay? But right now, what we are able to do is we are able to connect here with Neymar, for example. When I do login, I'm going to go inside the application. That's exactly where we created the material list. Now we advance a little bit in the API side, because in this page, I should be able to see all the materials inside my API, okay? If you remember, I'm using MongoDB. inside of my in 1 second. So here, okay. So I have this clusters, browse collections, over here, my cluster, hub, materials, and user. So I have those materials inside my app. Okay, so I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now what's going to happen in my application? So we use so far only the schema users, because to create a new account, oh my God, there are even many accounts right now because of the exercise that you did. So I have like many users inside the database. So now we are using users to be able now to fetch the materials. Okay, we need to use another thing inside the API. That's going to be the authorization feature. Okay, so as you can see here in the documentation, if we keep going with the doc, so we have the authentication endpoints. Now we have here the data material model. So ID, course code, course name, professor, title, everything that's here, described here, okay? I have also inside of like the material data model. If we go down a little bit more, I have here now material endpoints. So the first sentence here is all endpoints require authorization better access token. It means that now to access those features inside database, so to be able here to check all the materials that we have inside database, we must be authenticated inside the app. Okay, so we're going to skip this because this is the endpoint to retrieve the materials that the person that's connected created. Okay, we're going to start by this one that's going to return all the materials. Okay, and we can also pass parameters, but we will skip also the parameters for now. We're going to try to do this like in the easiest way. Okay, so we're going to just call this. To understand what's going to happen, check that this specific endpoint requires a get method. So we need to use this endpoint using get method. Usually, we saw 2 weeks ago that when I call any API from the browser, I am able to use the method get because the browser will use the method get every time. So it means that if I try to use this base URL with this endpoint in the browser, we should be able to reach out this endpoint, right? So if I go here, materials, enter, we did touch the API, but check, token is missing. Please log in. Why did we receive this message? Because when I call the API from the browser, I'm not able to pass any parameter. I'm not able to pass header. I'm not able to pass anything. So in fact, to call this specific endpoint, I must be authenticated inside the app. How the API request will know, in case the API will know that I am authenticated inside the app, is exactly using the token that will be generated at the moment that we do the login. Check here. Okay, so I have this token right here. So if we go to Postman to try to understand what's going to happen, let's create here a new request, because again, Postman will be our helper to understand how to call properly each endpoint of the API. So let's add here a new request. So it's going to be a GET request. That's fine. So we're going to see here, get all materials. Enter. The URL is going to be the base URL / materials, because this is exactly what I said here in the documentation. Okay. The same process. If I call this, check, I'm going to have 401 unauthorized because I don't have token. Where should I add the token? Doc. All endpoints require authorization, better token. So if I go here to authorization, in fact, authorization will go inside of the headers. Okay, we're gonna see this after, like when we call from the Angular. But here in Postman, we have the option to go directly to authorization. So we go to authorization. Here we have the authentication type. So in this case, I created inside the API one type of token that's called better token. So we're going to go to better token. Here I can type the token. So if I type anything, check, the answer before was token is missing. Now if I call the API one more time, now I have another message. I have token invalid or expired. Please log in. So the token we saw before, that the token has one expiration inside, okay? So to be able to call this, we should call with one valid token. So if I go here to login one more time, I have here Neymar, so I can do send. So I'm going to authenticate. So this process we do have inside our API already. So when I go to the login page, I'm able to connect. I generate the token. So if I take the token here, I go to get all materials and I paste the token right there and I send, check. I received as a response one array with each material in one object, where I have all the information for each material. I have like information for the material, the professor, the user that created the material, okay? Everything here is listed inside the array. I have 200 is a success status, and that's it. If I change one single letter in the token, I remove the 0 at the end. If I send, invalid token. The token will be generated by the backend using one specific secret, okay? So it will not work if I just take like any token here, because when I try to decode the token with the secret, it will not work. So I need to use here a token that was generated by the API. So basically what's going to happen is I call the API, I do the authentication, okay, to login. The API will give to me a token. So every time that I need to do another request right now, I will use my token. This kind, if we try to compare, like in real life, what's going to happen is, imagine you are arriving in Canada for the first time, okay? So you send your documentation to LaSalle, But when you arrive here, you need to do your registration, right? So you need to go to La Salle in person one time to show that you are you. So you need to present yourself, you need to show your documents, you need to validate the documents that you before sent by whatever, mail or email or whatever. But you need to go there one time. After you do the registration and they check that you are real, so you send like all the good documents, what they're going to give to you? The student card. This is a token. Now, every time that you need to access the college, you just need to use your card. Is your token. You don't need to go to the registration place one more time to show all your documents one more time, you know? So the registration here in our case is the login page where you're going to type your email and password. This will prove that you are yourself. So after that, the API, that's the registration place, to say, okay, you're good. I see your documents. I see your email and password. So the API here is our registration place. It's okay. Here is your card. The card is your token. So the token right now, every time that you need to do anything inside the college and you need to access the college, you need to use your card to pass, okay, to the security place. So automatically, the security system will know the time, for example, that you arrived at the college, the time that you left the college every single day. Here is exactly the same situation. Of course, we don't have card, but we have the token. So every time right now that my application tries to reach out the backend, the API, the card will be the token. So I send the token inside the request. When I send the request for the login, I send email and password. Now, when I send here the request to get all materials, I don't need to send any other information but the token that's here inside of the header. Because when the token arrives at the API will decode the token and say, okay, here is Neymar that's calling because inside of this token, there is the information of the user that created that token. Okay. So in this case, we saw that like in this, we're going to have like the user ID inside. Okay. So if we see here, there is a user ID inside of the token A to D. Okay, so here the A to D is exactly the user of Neymar. So the backend will control who is trying to access, and also the backend will decide if that specific user is able or not to do operations. Okay, so sometimes the user cannot delete, for example, one specific thing inside database. So this logic will be inside the API. Okay, so that's exactly why we use token to authorize the request to do something inside database. Take back information, push information, whatever. So now how can we reproduce this inside Angular? So the first step here is going to be, we're going to create a new service that's going to be the material service, okay? Because we try to split the responsibility of each service, okay, uh, separated. So authentication, we're going to call the authentication, all the authentications part will be here, okay? Because of course, we're going to see right now that we need to create another things, another stuff here. let's go. Okay. So I can run again the app one more time. So now we have our new service here. If we try to compare with the authentication service, the way that's going to work is going to be exactly the same. So what we need when we create a service, first, the base URL. In this case, it's going to be the same API. So the API is deployed exactly in the same place. Okay, it's one single API. So the base URL is going to be exactly the same. So we're going to copy the base URL from here, from the authentication service, and we're going to paste inside our material service. Another thing, we need to inject in the constructor the HTTP client, okay, object. So we're going to copy here, and we're going to inject also inside my material service. The next step, again, same. If we go to authentication service, we need to create a new function that will be the responsible function to list all the materials. Okay, so list, oops, not here, my bad. So list all. Okay, same thing. That usually what's going to happen, I will receive as a parameter, sorry, I will return as a type one observable in one specific type. Okay, so let's take this, same, let's copy and paste here. So we need to import observable from RxJS. Here we're going to use any for now. Okay, we need to create our interface. And after, same process. I need to return this HTTP dot. Now, what's the method that we need to use? Check in Postman, get, because we saw in the documentation that this requires the method get. We tried here inside Postman and everything is fine. It worked. So get method, we need to go here and use the get method. We saw at the API, for example, GitHub, that the first parameter here for the get method is exactly the URL. So who is going to be the URL? The base URL plus the endpoint. So here we have the base URL slash materials, because this is exactly what we called from here. Okay, that's described inside of the API. And also this is inside the code. Okay, there's a function related to that specific endpoint. So everything is the same for now. Okay, at this point, now we need to change a little bit the request. Why? And also here, let's put any for the moment. Okay, so what is going to be changed at this moment right now? If I call the API only with this, I'm going to have the same problem that we had here in the browser, because I'm calling this using the method get, and that's it. So I'm going to have token missing. We saw in the Postman that I need to call this API using the better token authorization. As I told you before, check, if I press comma here in the get, check that now I have another parameter that's called options. This is a dictionary, is an object, okay? Is one JavaScript object. Inside JavaScript object, I have here headers. So the authorization, as I mentioned before, should go inside of headers. It means that I need to pass here the options. I need to pass the key called headers, right? Now, inside headers, check that the type of headers is exactly HTTP headers. So I can use the constructor new HTTP headers. Inside of the constructor, I can pass here the dictionary key value. Okay, so I can pass here another dictionary, and now we need to understand what we should pass here. Check. If I go to the authorization, to the documentation, I need to pass one authorization type key, which the value should be better and the token. So we need to pass here in this request something like this: dictionary authorization key. The value is going to be something like this: better, better, and here the token, where the token in this case should be the token that will arrive from the login. For example, if I want to call this using this token, so this token, this insanely big token, should be placed right here. So this is the request. So this is how it should be. All right. But of course, this is just insane because it doesn't make a single sense that we use a constant token here, because if not, first, our application will call the API as it was every time Neymar. It's kind of like we give the same card for all the students. So all the students, they will access exactly with the same card, the Cégep, the La Salle, the college. This should be dynamic. So every time that the user logs in the application, we need to save this token somehow. And when I call this request, I push the token here automatically. You see the process? At the first time, it looks a little bit weird, okay? But after we configure this, it's fine. It's going to be automatic. We do the login, we save the token. When we call this, we take the token and we push here inside. That's the flow. But of course, the token is related to our authentication service here, right? So we can use one feature that's called local storage that will create a persistent memory inside our Angular app where I can store the token and any other information that I need, okay, to store in a huge dictionary. We have like many other ways to store data inside like Angular app. Of course, there are many like advanced stuff. So we have like state manipulation, for example. Okay, so we can store like we can call one specific API to renew token. Well, we have like many different methods to do this. Okay, but this is one way that's also very used. So we can use something that's called local storage. So basically, what we're going to do here inside our authentication service is we're going to create a new method that's called set token. So basically, when I connect the application, I'm going to call this, and I'm going to pass the token that I'm going to receive from the API as a parameter from my function. So I'm here in the login page. Check when I connect the application through the API and I have the success response, what I do, I redirect to the materials. But now before we do that, we're going to call the service in this function to save the token, because we know that the token information is right here inside the response of the API. Okay, so we checked before. Every time that we log in, we have the token and the user information inside of the response. Okay, so basically, we're going to create a new function, not to call the API, but to call the local storage. This is one storage that we have inside Angular. Again, that's going to be persistent. And we're going to go to one specific method that's called set item. And we can pass key and value. So I'm going to pass here token, and I'm going to save the value of this token inside of my memory. First step. If I have here one function to save the token, of course, I should have also another function called get token, because this is going to be the function to retrieve the token from the local storage. Okay, so this function should return a type string or null, because if we have this key inside of the storage, we're going to return a valid value. If not, we're going to return null. Okay, so now we're going to return local storage dot, we have here get item. We need to get exactly the key that we provided at the moment that we did set token. So token. Okay, so set token, get token. Right now, if I go back to the login, what's going to happen? Before go to materials, we're going to call the authentication service. That's the same service that we are calling the login. Here, right now, I have here set token. So I'm going to call set token, and I will pass the response from the API dot access token. So right now, every time that someone logs in our application, we take the token and we save the token here inside of the local storage. Now, instead of doing this, authorization better, every time inside of our material service, what we can do, we can go back to our authentication service and we create another function that's going to be called get authorization headers. Okay, so this will return exactly what we have right here. This. Sorry, this. Okay, so this authorization service get authorization headers will return this dictionary. Of course, again, this is a dictionary with the key authorization that's required, better that's required, and here the token that's also required. But now we do have one reference to the token for the user that's connected in our application right now. So I'm going to use, instead of like this constant value, oops, I can use here the interpolation, and I'm going to call get token. So this get token. So every time that I call this function, get authentication headers, I'm going to have this information to place. Yeah, this is good. So I have this information, okay, to place inside of my material service. So now it means that from my material service, I need to call my authentication service. It's the same, okay? It looks like a component. So if I need to call my authorization service from my material service, that can happen a lot, okay, in the Angular applications, one service calling another service. We just need to inject. It's the same process, okay? So we just need to come here and we inject read-only authentication service out service. And that's it. So now, when we call new headers HTTP, the constructor, instead of passing this as a parameter, what we can do, we access our this authentication service and we take get authentication headers. That's it. So basically, this is every time the header that you need to pass to the API when uh, the endpoint needs, okay, the authentication. That's it. If you want even to improve a little bit more, you can create here another function that you return this every time. So you just call the function inside your material, okay? But I'm going to keep like this because you can understand better why we are using dictionary, headers, new headers, and after this. So because if you press Control and you click in the function, you're going to see here what the function is returning, okay? So if you not click, so you hover, sorry. If you click, you're going to access, okay, where it is. Now it's done, almost done, because we're still using any as a type, okay? That's exactly the last step to finish our list all, because we need to create here one interface to be able, okay, to be able to take the good information that's coming from the API. So check that get all materials, we return a list of materials. So what we need to create right now is exactly one interface that will be the material type, okay? So as we did before, I'm going to create here after I put it up because it's a little bit long. So basically, I need to create here export interface material. So now we're going to create the type, not the interface, not the type, for the material. So we're going to start here. This is going to be a string. So I have like a string one time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have this, we have this, we have this, and we have this. Okay, so course name, name at description ID. Posted by is also a string. So we have here posted by user. So we're going to start as any for now. After we create the type for this, we have professor, string. We have semester, also string. We have title, also string, and URL also is string. All right. So everything is here. Now, the only thing that's missing is the posted by user. So we need to create here export interface posted by user. Okay. So we have ID string, we have email string. Okay. So here, ID, email, and name. That's going to be a string. So now, instead of using any here, I can use posted by username. So now we delete this. And just to keep like the same standard, so we're going to put all this at the top of our service. Okay, right here. There you go. Okay, so we create the model for my material. So now, what's going to be the type that this list all will return? This will return a list of material. The material, I have the type. So instead of any here, I'm going to use material list in one array of material. And here, the same. All right? So now it's done. Again, this is the first time that we are using authentication inside of the call. Of course, the configuration needs to be a little bit tough because we need to create the get token, the set token, the get out headers. We need to create everything. Now, we just need to copy this and paste in the other request because everything is done. What's going to be the step after we have this? Now, we just need to go to our material list and we call this API at the moment that the user arrives at the page. So now the behavior is going to be a little bit different because so far, well, when we call, for example, the cat fact API, what we did, we put the call inside of the constructor because it's exactly at the moment that we build the application, the component, that we want to call the API, because in this case, I don't need any action from the user to be able to show the materials that we have inside, okay, of this component. So when we access, we show. I don't need the user to type something to be able to show the materials. I just want to list everything. Okay? So it's different. So now, same steps as usual. What's the first step? Here, I need to call the constructor because I need to inject the read-only material service. I need to inject the service that we just created over here because I need to call this function, list all. Okay? But now it's still inside of my constructor because this is going to be the method that I'm going to call at the moment that I load the application. So I need to access my material service. Now it's going to be the same steps. So I have here list all. So this is the method that will return the observable. I need to subscribe, right? There we go. When I do the subscription, I have the two steps as usual. I have the next, callback, and I have here the error, okay, the same way. So I have here the response, I have here the error. So console log response, we start every time with the console log, okay? Development is step by step. Don't try to develop your app thinking about, okay, the final result. Development is step by step. We call the API. It works? Yes, it works. So we keep to the next step. So now I'm here in the login page, right? Material list component 11. 11. What? I think it's just above. So if I do the login with Neymar right now, okay? When I click here, we call the API, we subscribe. If it goes well, what we do? We save the token right now inside our local storage because of this function here, set token, that we created inside the authentication service. After that, we're going to redirect the user to the materials route. In the materials page, that's this one here, the first step is going to be the constructor. So in the constructor, still, we will call the API to check all the materials list. So if we check here the list of materials, the API will use the header authorization token that will come from exactly the get token. That's my local storage. So at the login, I save the token. At the material, I get the token, I put here, and I give this back to my material service to call here the API. If I press login, check. In material list component, I have here the list of all the materials that I have inside of my API. What it means? It means that right now, I just need to take that information and show inside of my UI. For example, I know that if I call this inside of the constructor, we see that it's working fine because we just checked inside the console log that it worked well. So first step, materials. We're going to create here a new variable that will be of type list of material, because this is exactly the response that will arrive from the API. We're going to start this as one empty array. And when we have the response, once the response is exactly a list of material, so we can say that materials we receive, this materials, that's this variable, this property, we receive the response from the API. Now, remember the first class. When I need to iterate a list of something, what we do? We use the ng4. So we can import here in the material list component the common module. Now we go back to our HTML file, and we're going to start here just to create a small UI to be able to show, okay, everything. So let's create a div here. I'm going to call this page container. Okay. We're going to have more stuff here after, okay, because we have the filters. So probably the filters, we're gonna leave this like for the last part. The important right now is going to be show the materials, okay, inside this page. So you're going to go here, class material list. So for now, there you go. So as we did before, again, every time that I need to iterate something, what we can use the ng4, right? So we imported the common module, so we can use the ng4 to iterate the list and show here exactly all the materials. We know that the syntax is let auxiliary variable material, we can call this M, of, not in, of materials. Who is materials? Materials is exactly the variable that we created here at the top. Materials. So materials will arrive from the API, right? So we have this. So this we can create also a class, material card. So now another div here that's going to be my card content, because right here below I'm going to have also my class card actions. Okay, so just to give a small test, H4 interpolation. So I'm running through the list of materials. Each material will be one by one inside my M variable, M. So if I want to show the title, for example, of this material, I can go here, M dot title, check. I have here midterm solution, final exam, midterm solution, midterm exam solution. If I change here database, for example, let's say this one, midterm solution, HML, this. Let's change this one. So I'm going to call this Angular and save. Where's my save? Save. So now instead of midterm solution HML, I have midterm solution Angular. Check. If I refresh the app, I'm going to call the API one more time. This should update. I change database. So when I go to my component one more time, I call the API take the status of the database right now and gives me back here in the app. Okay, so we are able, using the token at this moment, to call this, the user must be authenticated. We must have a valid token. I need to connect the app before. Of course, after we're going to create some guards, okay, to make sure that the user is connected to be able to access this. Because if the user doesn't have any token, it will give an error, okay? And we don't need to keep showing error to the user. Okay? We want to block. We're going to try to make our application as much perfect as possible. Okay, so we're going to try to do that. But before this step, okay, let's just, before we have a small break, let's just here create everything that we need to show all the information that we're going to show inside of that. So we have here material service. So I'm going to copy this because I don't know by heart all the values. So we're going to show here the title that I know that is there, title. So we're going to also show m dot course code, interpolation, one small dash here, and we're going to show course code and also course name. There you go. Okay, so we're going to have another paragraph that we're going to show professor, and here we're going to show Amy professor And here we can do like a semester, for example, 2025, oops, semester. So we can show the description. Okay, I'm gonna copy this. It's better. This one gonna be better. I'm gonna show here description. So description, we're gonna change, okay, a little bit the style. And here, where's description? Description here. We're gonna show only description. That's fine. And the last one, it's gonna be a little bit smaller. So you can use the tag small. It's gonna be the cards author. We're gonna say by, and we're gonna use here the name of the user. So the name of the user right now, not the name, the email. The email of the user is inside posted by user. So it means that I need to go here, m dot posted by user. User in this case is another model, is one object. So if we check in material service, posted by user has email inside. Okay, so we're going to show here dot email. So this is going to be fine. We have also URL. So URL we're going to put here inside of the actions. Okay, so we know that I can do one link. So the link here is going to be exactly to visualize the material that I'm posting. Okay, so URL. So cart actions, view. We know that when we need to bind one variable with one property inside one HTML tag, for example, as we did for the image at the first class that we used the source. In link, we have href, okay? So the URL of the material, check that like all those divs, they are inside the form, okay? So this M will exist only inside this div here. So it's fine. I still can use the M inside of this another div because they're all inside my ng4. It is exactly how the regular for works, okay? Like in any other language. So here we're gonna have href m dot URL. So we're gonna just change a little bit the configuration of the href to avoid the user to switch our app to the content. So we're gonna target this in a blank page. So it's gonna open a new page. And here we're gonna just create the class btn view. So you're gonna delete this because I don't need this anymore, because I read like set here all the information that I want to show inside of my page. If we check the page right now, check, I have all the information coming from the API. That's completely functional already. Of course, it's missing style. We're going to create the CSS after the break. But our material list is 100% functional. I'm able here to see all the information from the API, what is good. So I have here the semester, the course, who is the professor, the semester, the description of the solution. So solution PDF for HTML midterm exam web server 1. And again, if for some reason someone changes this, so solution PDF for Angular midterm exam web server. If I save this, so here, HTML, now when I refresh, Angular. Again, it's a functional. And once again, is a REST API. It's not a communication in real time, okay? So this is a RESTful API. So every time that I call the API, I have the picture of like the current state of my database. So when I call this, for example, my database right now is Angular. The description here is solution PDF for Angular. If I change database, now I'm going to show you CSS, okay? Update. Of course, it will not change right away my application. But imagine that this is the list of the material that the user will see when they log in the application. So here I have Angular, but if I go to login again, for example, and I log in with Mary, you see here CSS. Because at the moment that Mary logged in the application, my database has been already changed before. So the current status right now for database is with CSS in the text. And also all the links here, they are functional. Check. Because we used a target, a link tag, okay, using binding property for my URL. So if I click here, check, I'm able to open the material. So this is a fake PDF, okay? So here there's another PDF too. So somewhere, I think the second one maybe, this one, sample PDF. So here I have another PDF that's a fake PDF. You see, again, the application is completely functional. We are able from the Angular app right now, using the API, using the backend, to sign up one user, create a new account, to connect the user, save the token, use the token in another requests, okay? So everything is fine. And after the next steps right now, after the navbar, they will be quite of easy because we have everything set. We have the token, we have the token saved, we have like the function that we return the token, we have everything. So now we just need to select the operation that we need to do. For example, the delete is going to be very easy. Create a new material will be kind of easy to. The last one that's going to be update, that's going to be a little bit more complicated because it needs to be like in 2 steps, because we need to read first the information of the material to be able to fill the form. And after, okay, we send the update request. But it's kind of the same of everything that we did before. Okay, so again, our application starts right now, our Angular app starts right now to be functional. Okay, questions for this first step? I know it's not easy. Okay, that's the life. So this is important to know. Okay, so no questions, still alive. Yes, no. No question. Okay, thumbs up. Okay.
Not now,
That's
sir.
good. That's good. All right. So we're gonna do this style for the CSS. Okay, very quick when we come back from the break. I think we can have like a small break right now. I'm gonna stop recording to avoid a very